She was just 13 years old, yet her body told a different story. Her arms, thin as twigs, her ribs pressing through her skin like a cage. She weighed less than a child half her age. When paramedics found her, she was too weak to speak, too weak to cry, too weak to fight. By the time help arrived, it was already too late. The woman responsible, the one person meant to protect her, to love her, to keep her safe, her mother. When the verdict was read, the room fell silent, a silence heavier than grief, heavier than rage, a silence filled with the weight of what had been uncovered. The judge's voice was steady, but the words carried a finality that sent a chill through the room. Life in prison, without the possibility of parole. But this isn't just a story about sentencing. This isn't just another case file. This is the story of a child who never stood a chance, and a mother whose cruelty defied understanding. A story of neglect, hidden in plain sight. A story of warnings ignored. A story that should have ended differently, but didn't. There's something wrong in that house. This is the horrifying case of a mother sentenced to life. The courtroom was silent. No gasps, no murmurs, just a heavy stillness that hung in the air like fog. The sentence had been handed down, but no punishment could match the crime. At the defense table sat a mother, expressionless. No grief, no regret, no apology. Across from her, the jury avoided her gaze. Their faces paled from the horror they had been forced to relive. In the center of it all, the name of a girl who could no longer speak for herself. She was just 13, but her body told a different story. Bones pressed against skin, her frame barely strong enough to hold her own weight. She had stopped growing long before she stopped breathing. In the end, she had no voice left to scream, no strength left to fight, and no one left to save her. But how? How did no one notice? How did no one step in? How did a mother, her own mother, watch as her child withered away? This is the horrifying case of a mother sentenced to life. This story begins in insert location, in a neighborhood like any other. Tree-lined streets, neighbors who waved, a house that looked no different from the rest. To the outside world, everything seemed normal. A mother and her child, living their lives, a home with lights in the windows and laughter in the yard. But inside, behind those doors, something unthinkable was happening. A child was starving. The camera lingers on the house, then cuts to a blurred image of a child's bedroom. Silent, untouched, a bed with stuffed animals neatly arranged. School books are gathering dust. A place meant for warmth and comfort, now nothing more than a forgotten shell. Her name was, victim's name, she was 13 years old. She had dreams like any child. She loved mention hobbies, drawing, reading, animals. She wanted to be, insert dream, doctor, artist, teacher. She should have had a future. Instead, she barely had a chance. No one knew what was happening to her, or if they did, they chose to look the other way. Behind these walls, meals weren't a time for family. They were weapons. Food wasn't a right, it was a privilege, and privilege had to be earned. For victim's name, it was a life of constant hunger. She would sit at the dinner table, watching her mother eat, knowing that tonight, just like the night before, there would be nothing for her. Disobedience meant punishment, and punishment meant starvation. Her name was mother's name. To those who knew her, she was just another parent, a little strict, maybe distant, but nothing out of the ordinary. But look closer, and the cracks begin to show. Her past wasn't spotless. There were whispers, reports of neglect, that never led to charges. A teacher once noted bruises on her daughter's arms. A neighbor recalled hearing shouting, followed by silence. And then, there were times the girl simply disappeared. Days would go by with no sign of her. No school, no play, just a house with the blinds drawn and the television turned up loud enough to drown out anything or anyone. The signs were there. They were always there. Some swore they saw her peeking through the curtains, sunken eyes, a pale face, fingers gripping the edge of the glass. Others admitted they'd heard something strange, a soft whimper, a muffled cry. But no one knocked, no one asked. Her teachers noticed. They saw her clothes hanging off her body, her skin dry and cracked. They asked questions, but the mother always had an answer. "She's just small for her age," she'd say. "She has a sensitive stomach." And just like that, the questions stopped. Even the family grew distant. Her grandparents hadn't seen her in months. An aunt tried to visit once, but was turned away at the door. "She's sleeping," the mother had said. "She hasn't been feeling well," but she never let her see for herself. Welfare check requested. Insufficient evidence. One by one, the warning signs were ignored. Until one call changed everything. 911, what's your emergency? There's a girl in that house. She looks so thin. Something isn't right. Can you describe the situation? She's outside sometimes, but only for a second. She's just skin and bones. And her mother, she won't let anyone near her. Has she asked for help? Number. But I don't think she can. By the time authorities arrived, it was already too late. It was date when authorities arrived at the home. They had been here before. Welfare checks, noise complaints, routine visits that led to nothing. But this time was different. Officers approached the front door, knocking once, twice. No answer. Then from inside, a noise. Faint. A rustling sound. The kind of noise a person makes when they don't want to be found. Even the most hardened officers weren't prepared for what they found on the other side of that door. At first glance, the house looked ordinary, too ordinary. No signs of struggle, no broken furniture, no mess. But then they noticed the locks, on the fridge, on the cupboards, anywhere food might be kept. And then, the smell. Something stale, something rotting. The officers called out. No response. And there in the darkness, they found her. She was curled up, her body barely more than a skeleton, draped in fragile skin. Her arms, thin, frail, wrapped around her knees, as if trying to make herself smaller, to disappear. Her eyes were wide, hollow, unblinking. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She only stared. 40 pounds. That's all she weighed. 13 years old, and barely alive. Her mother had been starving her for months. This was her world, a window covered with blackout curtains, a single, flickering light bulb. No books, no comfort, just four walls closing in around her. There was no way to tell how long she had spent locked inside this room, how many nights she had curled up on that mattress, waiting for a meal that never came, a voice that never spoke kindly. And then tucked under the mattress, they found it. "I am so hungry. I don't think I can stay awake anymore. Maybe tomorrow she will let me eat. Maybe tomorrow I can go outside. Maybe tomorrow will be better. I don't think she likes me anymore. I try to be good, but she still won't let me eat." Tomorrow never came. Her mother was found in the next room. Calm, unbothered. She didn't cry. She didn't fight. She simply watched. When the officers asked why she had done this, she only shrugged. She wasn't listening. She needed to learn. For 13 years, her daughter had been suffering, and for 13 years, No one had stopped it. Until now. The mother was taken into custody, but her reaction was unsettling. As investigators processed the scene, officers prepared for questioning. Would she break down? Show remorse? Deny everything? What they got instead was something entirely else. You know why you're here? I assume it's about my daughter. No panic, no confusion, no guilt, just calm detachment. You locked her in that room. You starved her. Why? She was difficult. She needed to learn. She was 13 years old. She weighed 40 pounds. And she had food. She just didn't eat. The fridge and pantry were locked. Officers found no trace of recent meals. She did this to herself. She was always dramatic. Neighbors had seen the girl's skeletal frame. Teachers had reported concerns. Her own diary told a different story. Some kids don't deserve love. Some kids are born wrong. Her words sent a chill through the room, not because she was angry, but because she wasn't. You're telling me you starved your own child because she was born wrong. I didn't starve her. I just stopped feeding her. And then she laughed. But as investigators dug deeper, they uncovered something far worse. What they found next turned this case from horrifying to truly nightmarish. The trial of Mother's Name began, and the details revealed in court were too disturbing for some to hear. The evidence will show that this was not neglected. This was not a mistake. This was intentional, calculated torture. Prosecutors painted a harrowing picture, a child trapped in a house of horrors, her suffering prolonged by the very person meant to protect her. This is a tragic case, but tragedy does not equal intent. The defense argued that the mother was overwhelmed, that she had struggled with her own demons, that she had made mistakes, but had never meant to kill her daughter. A mistake? Locking a child in a room for days? A mistake? Withholding food until she was too weak to stand? A mistake? Watching her waste away and doing nothing? The courtroom fell into silence, but it was the witnesses who delivered the final blows. I called 911. I knew something was wrong, but I never imagined this. She came to school hungry. She'd take food from the trash sometimes. I reported it, but it wasn't enough. In my decades of medical experience, I have never seen a case of starvation this severe outside of war zones. And then, the moment that shattered the room. Mommy, please, I'll be good. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty on all counts. Guilty on all counts. The room stood still, the weight of the decision sinking in. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justice was served, but for many, it was too late. The girl's story became a rallying cry for reform, child protection agencies under scrutiny, laws questioned. A fund was set up in her name, with donations pouring in to help at-risk children. But for those who loved her, it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. In the end, she wasn't just a victim. She was a child, a daughter, a life that should have been filled with love, laughter, and dreams, a life that should have never been lost. If you suspect child abuse, don't wait. Speak up. It could save a life. A child failed by those who should have protected her. A mother whose actions defy understanding. How many other children suffer behind closed doors? How many cries go unheard? If you or someone you know is in danger, reach out. A single call could save a life. Do you think justice was served? Should the punishment have been even harsher? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. For more shocking true crime stories, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because the truth is always more terrifying than fiction.